already introduced you to the situation in Jordan. I think I can save time here now. Thank you. But I want to, however, point out, even with my presentation, Jordan still is a very water-scarce country. And water resources, however, are limited to northwest. Rechargeable resources are limited to northwest, while in the rest of the country, mostly desert-like conditions pertain. So without pointing to these numbers too much for the water budget of 2009, we can say that there's a strong groundwater over-abstraction in Jordan. Groundwater is the main water resource available. So we have the choice either to look for new development of other groundwater resources or to protect the resources which are available. Jordan is opting for both of it. And together with us, we are trying to improve the protection of the available resources. Maybe to start by scratch, the different actors, as in many countries of the world, especially in Jordan, mainly, I think this is very feeble, mainly agricultural activities, urban growing, urban settlements, industrial activities, any commercial projects going on, and any other kind of activities can harm, can have hazard on groundwater resources, can pollute them. So, however, the common interest between all these stakeholders more or less is the groundwater protection, even though the idea is sometimes a little bit different, while the one needs safe drinking water to pertain health or to pertain the general livelihoods. Others think about rather conserve water resources for the future. Utilities might be interesting in saving costs for water treatment. Farmers might be interested just to have as much water as possible. So, and in any case, the groundwater protection is one of the central points of interest here. So, Jordan opted for this option for groundwater protection, which helps to avoid costs of contamination. So we have different kinds of costs, the quantifiable costs, the less quantifiable costs. For experts, might be easy to calculate together what would be a treatment and remediation cost appearing, what would it cost to find and replace water resources which had been contaminated to replace with fresh water resources, whatever is needed about public information awareness campaigns, if it's about hygiene, for example, any regulatory compliances as presented by my fourth speaker already. The loss of property values and tax revenues if certain projects are not feasible because of bad water resources. Do I hurt you? Other costs are not so easy to be observed or to, let's say, quantified. Those are certainly the impact on health due to bad water resources, due to any infections and so on, which may result in the loss of productivity and work power at least. Lost economic development opportunities referring to, for example, tourist projects or other bigger projects in need of a certain water quality which cannot be satisfied there. And last but not least, for sure, the lost, not the very last one, the lost consumer confidence, which may result that consumers, people, opt to choose other water resources or even in regard to payments, would refuse payments because they say the water is not good. And finally, then the lost environmental benefits, livelihoods for animals, plants, and tourist projects, for example. In short, Jordan opted for a protection system or protection concept which is pretty much common worldwide. We have 3 protection zones. The immediate one around the water source itself. There is an inner protection zone which is limited by the so-called 50 days line. The outer limit means 50 days needs the water to travel to the water source. So this is to prevent any bacteriological contamination. And finally, the outermost, the zone 3, wider protection zone, which is covering the whole area where the water flows to the water source, the well, the spring, or whatever. So effectively, the catchment. This concept had been introduced already 2003, was adopted in a national guideline in 2006, and just last year in consensus with all stakeholding agencies and ministries in Jordan, updated as a water resource protection guideline by the end of last year, 2011. As many things are regulated already in this guideline, like the size of protection zone 1, protection zone 2 and 3 can only be generally limited. So expert opinions are needed here to give an idea about the distance of the 50 days line to the water source, for example. So there's more knowledge needed about hydrogeology, topography, and so on and so on. However, we should not lose sight that the protection zone should be as large as necessary for safeguarding the water supply, but as small as possible also to avoid inadequate restrictions. We can protect the water, yes, but we should not protect all of Jordan from its water, because this would be a too strong limitation at all. Some aspects which had been addressed newly is that the water protection zones not should be applied only to public wells, but also to private water suppliers. Sorry. Go ahead, please. It's not a coffee break, please. Okay, great. Now we have also the presentation on the screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
بصراحة يعني الواحد خلاص.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, just continuing, looking back. 1999 was the first protection zone officially declared in Jordan. Since then, consecutively, we had a lot of other protection zones for wells, for springs, for surface water resources, which had been supported by scientific and technical studies by BGR for the MWI and for the WAJ. But you also see that the Water Authority and the JBA apply themselves already in a regular way protection zones for newly established water supply resources. Actually, we are also looking forward to delineate the process, the groundwater protection delineation for Al-Awsa wellfield and Hidan wellfield. For those who know Jordan, they might know that they're quite important for water supply, mainly in Amman and also Madaba, another big city there. This is the map of northern Jordan. Shows you the protection zone 3 for all so far established groundwater protection zones done in cooperation with BGR. Means by today we almost cover 34% of all the water resources of Jordan, which is pretty good, and we are looking forward to achieve 45 sooner or later. What you see here, I just put it, this is actually the signpost we use in Germany to show to people that they're entering a water protection zone. We have special logos, I will show them later for Jordan. Pollution, as we have, for example, different pollution sources are possible. For example, for the Awsa wellfield, we see mainly problems with coming from the agricultural use of pesticides and fertilizers, and also salination due to strong pumping. For the other wellfield, Hidan, we see mainly problems due to storm floods and floodings in the rainy season, when a lot of contaminants are spilled into the wells or are infiltrating due to preferential flowways. So in both cases, protection of these very productive well fields is needed, and we hope to conduct this in the next 2 years together with our partners from the ministry. So as already said, we applied a special set of signposts to announce the protection zone 1, which is the innermost, the immediate protection zone, giving you already an idea that besides the operation and maintenance, nobody should enter this protection zone, and some of the common habits we can observe many times in the Middle East are also forbidden. Entry of animal feeding or herds for grazing, and the littering is forbidden. So this should be an exclusively used area just for the water protection itself. The protection zone, normally also this is in private, or let's say it's the property of the water utility or the water supply itself, normally comprises an area of around 1 dunam. For protection zone 2, it's a little bit more difficult. As I said, it should be limited by the 50 days line, which is normally subject to more intense field work and modeling, for example. You see on this right image 2 wells. In yellow, the protection zone 2 area. I'm sorry, the laser pointer is not so strong anymore. And in green, the protection zone 3 means the whole catchment where the water flows to the wells. Following the guideline, the maximum distance of the 50 days line should be 2 kilometers from the source of extraction, and downstream also 50 to 150 meters. What you can see by the signpost upper left corner is that a couple of activities are also limited which are of daily use, like for example any car services or the use of pesticides, fertilizers, and sewage systems should be installed for any kind of activity being there. So there's a strong need also of communication, not only with any projects or companies working there, but also with the local people living in the protection zone. So we see there's a strong need for awareness in this area as well. This is an example. I hope you can see that well. Here is, on the upper right side, there's the Einrachhoop Spring, the protection zone 2, slightly covered with this picture, and the protection zone 3 finally. And you see it's an area with a strong agricultural use and a lot of villages and cities around, cities growing into the protection zone as well. So you will see a lot of confronting interests in regard to land use and emissions and restrictions here. What we can say by the actual status, and I'm coming to the end of the presentation, is that the concept of groundwater protection is well established and accepted widely in Jordan. Water protection zones can be found in most of the places for public supply. However, violation is a regular fact for fences and signposts, but this is something which can be solved easily. The possible hazards to groundwater are identified, and decision makers are aware of them. And also for regard water quality monitoring to safeguard the water quality, actually, drinking water quality is intact and is ongoing. So in blue, meant here, what I can positively take out of that the groundwater protection zones helped greatly to raise the visibility of water issues, because you can see there is something, it's not just groundwater hidden by the ground. So it helps for people to understand that they have to take care about something else than just, daily issues. Decision makers and technical staff are acting positively to possible groundwater contamination insofar that they know that there are restrictions, they have to act to apply certain standards. And furthermore, they also request more groundwater protection zones where, for example, some quality issues are in question. Like I mentioned before, the 2 well feeds we have actually in preparation, which had been requested from the Jordanian partners to have support in the delineation process. What I think is still on the way or still has to be done necessarily is to apply a thorough enforcement for laws and regulation in regard not only to water but also to environmental issues, to reduce or prevent even illegal practices harming water, and also to change behavior of different kind of people acting in the protection zones. I mentioned agriculture, but there might be others as well, to reduce, for example, or to prevent the use of pesticides and fertilizers. This last slide, I would just highlight the 3 main points we identified through the project after a long phase of technical cooperation in regard to capacity building, that this water protection issue should be in, I think, any country introduced in the land use planning, which is maybe on different levels, depends on the country. It should be highly regarded and treated by the water resources management institutions, the authorities, utilities, whoever is doing that. And the third one, even though it's in the bottom, I think it's quite important, I mentioned this before, is the public awareness for water protection. These people are living there, they are doing daily business, and they should do it in a way that's according to the regulations. So looking forward to have giving you some impressions and ideas about the topic. I'm here for the next days. If you have further questions, you're welcome to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fahim, for your nice presentation that you highlighted in one of the most important issues, which is the cost of pollution, which I really like it. I also touched some other area for groundwater pollution and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
المتحدث الرابع دكتور علاء عطية. دكتور علاء حصل على درجة الدكتوراه من جامعة بغداد في مصادر المياه، ومن أهم اهتماماته هو تطبيق نظم المعلومات الجغرافية GIS لخدمة مصادر المياه وعلوم البيئة، ويعمل حاليا أستاذ مساعد بجامعة بغداد. دكتور علاء.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So,
Good afternoon for everything. I'm sorry. Good afternoon for everyone. The main focal point of this study is to assess the aquifer, the groundwater vulnerability assessment of the aquifer in northeastern Misan Governorate south of Iraq by using the mostly common used method, a drastic approach in the framework of geographic information system. Firstly, I'll try to describe the study area in briefly, and then I will explain the methodology and the material in more detail. The study area is located in the east and northeast Misan Governorate, South Iraq, and extended over an area of about 2,000 square kilometer. The topographic elevation ranges from 7 to 230 meters. The area in the study area, two ephemeral streams is run, namely Tib and Warij River. Source of both is Iran territory. The average discharge of both streams variable depending on the falling rainfall. And both streams attain maximum flows during winter month, while the minimum flow occurs during summer months. This figure shows the study area, the location of the study area, and the main features located within it. And this figure shows the elevation of the study area. From the geomorphological point of view, study area is flat and featureless, bounded by foothill zone in the northeast along the Iraq-Iranian border. Most common landform within the area is valley network, alluvial fans, floodplains, sibakh, ahwar, and sandy dunes. From the tectonical point of view, the large part of the area lies in the Mesopotamian structure zone, and small part along the Iranian boundary belongs to the folded zone. Geologically, most part of the study area is covered with full of Lacustrine Aeolian sediments. Quaternary deposits extends over about 72% of the study area, and tertiary sediment occupy 28%. The main point focal of this study is to assess the groundwater vulnerability of the main aquifer. In order to achieve goal of this study, soil sample was collected and assigned texture name based on the USD texture name. Soil type in the study area then converted to soil permeability based on the soil taxonomy according to this classification soil. The average value of infiltration rate then interpolated by using the ordinary Kriging interpolation techniques by using the geostatistical analysis extension in ArcGIS to produce the soil hydrologic group layer of the study area. First, in the study area, depending on the available data, can be classified into three different types of water-bearing layers: shallow, main, and confined, artesian. A shallow aquifer is unconfined in nature, less important than the other, and fine and sand with little silt represents the main consistency of this unit. Only few dug wells penetrate this unit of aquifer and extract water for livestock and depth to groundwater for this part of aquifer range between 2 and 5 meters. Most important aquifer is the main aquifer in the study area. Aquifer is also widespread over the study area, consists mainly of mixture of gravel and sand with a significant amount of silt and clay. The main thickness or the average thickness of this aquifer may be reached to 45 meters, while the minimum thickness is about 20 meters. Main aquifer is semi-confined. Confined and unconfined occupy about 72 and 18 of the whole study area. The last map, this map shows the spatial distribution of the main thickness aquifer in the study area, and the second one represents the exposure of the tertiary and confined and unconfined aquifer. Hydraulic conductivity of the aquifer about 0.5 and is less than for that tertiary, maybe due to the fact the main sediment is gravel and sand, while the sedimentary is gravel with significant amount of silt, which reduce the transmissivity and hydraulic conductivity. This figure shows the areal distribution of hydraulic conductivity for the main aquifer. And this figure shows the main flow and direction of the main aquifer also. Evaluation of aquifer in the main aquifer for general and pesticide contamination is achieved using the most commonly vulnerability method, namely drastic approach, and it is an overlying indexed approach. And because of presence of industrial and agriculture activities in the study area, the standard and pesticide version are used in the present study. Preparation of drastic factors achieved through gathering data from different sources, including field survey, geological and meteorological data, digital elevation model, archival and published research. All of these thematic maps are arranged in a geospatial database using spatial analyst extension of ArcGIS software. All thematic maps also are projected into UTM zone 38 North, and prepared at a raster grid of sill side of 13 meters. This table shows the rating and weighting for every factor in drastic approach. And these figures represent depth to groundwater level rating, soil media rating, slope rating, impact of vadose zone rating, hydraulic conductivity rating, and the results obtained related to vulnerability to general contamination show the study area characterized by 3 vulnerability zones: very low, low, and moderate. About 85% of the area has a very low class of groundwater to contamination, whereas a total 50 has low vulnerability. Just only 1% of the study area falls within the moderate class. A very large area, a very large area, 90% in very low classes may be attributed to the impact of vadose zone and the low value of hydraulic conductivity of the aquifer. The pesticide map shows the study is characterized by 3 zones of vulnerability: low, moderate, and high. This figure shows the drastic approach for 2 versions of the method: pesticide and general contamination. In this study, with respect to conclusion and recommendation, in this study, the drastic approach is used to investigate the groundwater vulnerability. The obtained results show the main aquifer is naturally protected from the source of contamination occur, while the class of very low and low vulnerability extend over a large area. The only high class is associated with use of pesticide because of high dissolved, which is quickly dissolved and transported through the vadose zone. Use of biological method and protection zone preferred instead of using pesticide to protect the ground, especially in high class of vulnerability. Thank you for listening and your interest.
Thank you, Dr. Ala, for your nice presentation. Last but not the least, Mr. Peter بنشن يعمل حاليا مستشار في إدارة المياه بهيئة التعاون الألماني GIZ بالمكتب الرئيسي بألمانيا ومسؤول عن منطقة الخليج. مستر بيتر حاصل على درجة الماجستير في الجيولوجيا ومتخصص في الهيدرولوجي وإدارة مصادر المياه، وعمل خبيراً لمشروعات GIZ في قطاع المياه بالعديد من الدول على سبيل المثال وليس الحصر في أمريكا اللاتينية وجنوب أفريقيا وجنوب شرق آسيا والإمارات العربية المتحدة. Mr. Peter is going to present one of the most important topics, which is the specific requirements of groundwater monitoring and groundwater protection in ASR facility. However, we don't know what is ASR. It has to be.
This is the big
Thank you
secret.
very much. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Very good late afternoon to all of you, and thank you for staying together with me until the bitter end. I tried to shorten my presentation as much as I could. Well, ASR facilities, this is a topic which is at present very much in favor, especially in the Gulf region. That's why I would like to draw your attention a little bit away from beautiful Jordan and a little bit away from Iraq to the Gulf region. Unfortunately, I don't see any member of the Gulf region states over here in this conference, but nonetheless, some topics could also be interesting to you as regards wellfield operation, as regards groundwater protection in general. So in arid regions where precipitation is scarce, and I'm pinpointing on very arid regions, artificial recharge and recovery of water. And this is what is standing behind this phrase ASR, artificial storage and recovery. Artificial recharge can play a major role in water resources management. There are at present quite a number of initiatives in some Gulf states, especially in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, where a major project on ASR is presently being implemented, and I had the honor and joy for having headed this project until the end of last year, and then my wife told me, Peter, khalas, let's go back to Germany. Another project has just been tendered in Qatar, and we hope that GIZ International Services is going to win that project. And there are quite some strong initiatives also from the Saudi side to go into this direction. What are the primary benefits, especially for these countries I mentioned? What are the primary benefits of ASR projects? I try to summarize it. It's first and foremost the creation of safe, major strategic freshwater resources. Just to give you an example, once this Abu Dhabi project will be implemented, or will be constructed, or will be implemented, during an infiltration period of up to 2 years, a major strategic freshwater resource of a little bit more than 26 million cubic meters will have been created. So these 26 million cubic meters could never be stored in surface storage facilities like tanks and what have you. On the other hand, we all know political-wise, the Gulf region is also a sensitive area. Surface tanks, pipelines, desalination plants could be targets, could be political targets, etc. pp. So, secondly, it's a reliable water supply in emergency cases. If we look at the statistics, for example, the water supply rates for Abu Dhabi, the storage facilities for Abu Dhabi, for the capital Abu Dhabi, allows for 3 days only. So after 3 days, Abu Dhabi would dry up. I think the figures for Qatar are 4 days, for Muscat 5 days, Saudi Arabia in some parts 6 days, but that's it. This is because most of the countries are partly to 100% relying on desalination. The next benefit of our projects is the management of fluctuations in water production and consumption. This is a topic which stands for itself. So this was just an introduction into the topic. What is done in the Abu Dhabi project and what will be done also in the Qatar project and most probably also in other ASR projects in the region. We're taking desalinated seawater from desal plants, transporting them to an existing aquifer system, which shows most probably drinking water quality, at least in its upper part. So we are enriching more or less an existing aquifer. The same technique, more or less, could also be used, for example, for using polished TSE, treated sewage effluent, for agricultural purposes. So in principle, the technique could be the same. I don't want to elaborate too much on the general project setup, but I picked up one important aspect, which is the groundwater monitoring network. And especially when talking about ASR projects, we found out that a very specific setup must be, no, my fingers are not sensitive enough. So when talking about ASR projects and the development of an appropriate groundwater monitoring network, it's first of all, what do we have to look into? It's the geometry of the introduced water. Is it desalinated seawater? Is it TSE or what have you? So in this, when we are talking about geometry, we're talking about expansion. We are talking about movement of the desalinate of the water body. And we are talking about the contraction of the body in an aquifer during recovery periods. Then we have to talk about water quality, meaning groundwater quality. When defining a groundwater monitoring network, what do we really need? We need to look into mixing effects of the introduced water and a potential upconing of deep-seated brackish or saline groundwater. All these aspects are parameters which must be imported when defining a groundwater monitoring network. And last but not least, also groundwater level changes, etc., etc. I think you are familiar enough with these topics. And finally, and this is one of the very important aspects as well, a well-defined groundwater monitoring network helps for an efficient plant operation, meaning to detect potential changes of recovery efficiency, and also for optimal well field operation. And finally, a groundwater monitoring network shall also serve as an early warning system against potential hazards. Coming back to the ASR system, specific monitoring parameters are, in general, groundwater levels, or water levels, talking about groundwater level, water level of the recharged ASR inside the system, and also water level in tanks, water flow volumes, and water quality related questions, native groundwater, recharged water, and recovered groundwater. As regards the monitoring well arrangement, we, in the Abu Dhabi case, tested something at least new to us. We did not use the traditional way of setting up a monitoring system, but we, according to our modeling specialists, we arranged a so-called logarithmic spiral method. So if you look at this picture over there, it seems like a seashell, and in fact, this is an effect which very often appears in nature. In principle, the density of needed groundwater monitoring wells is highest at recharge recovery schemes. This is a recharge recovery scheme at the center. While with the increasing distance from these centers, fewer wells will be required. For almost homogeneous aquifer, this method allows for a minimum number of wells at sufficient spatial coverage if compared to an evenly well distribution. These are the red dots, evenly well monitoring well distribution, or to the crosswise arrangement of monitoring wells. These are systems I call the traditional, old-fashioned systems. So you are not saving a hell lot of money for drilling these wells, but you're also saving money for installation, for meter reading, etc., etc. Nonetheless, when using this spiral method, you get what you want. We tested it and we succeeded with it. As regards aquifer, as regards data acquisition and data transfer, we also reduced the number of data readings. Generally, measurement intervals are not needed in a shorter period than 10 minutes. Otherwise, you would end up in a total superfluous of unnecessary data which you don't need at all. Then coming to an aspect, this slide just shall give you a typical layout of recharge recovery schemes as being planned, for example, for Qatar or for Abu Dhabi as well. You have the infiltration well or infiltration basin in the center, surrounded by recovery wells and the monitoring network. Distance between different schemes are 5 kilometers. Again, a picture showing a groundwater monitoring network as implemented in the region.
Peter, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes only. So finally, let me come to the design of monitoring wells themselves. So what do we see here? In order to reliably record the three-dimensional movement of infiltrated water, we constructed different kind of wells: shallow observation wells, medium deep observation wells, and deep observation wells, depending on the geological structure. And we clustered the wells. So at each measuring point, we drilled 3 wells, including the installation, and we installed into each well 2 pipes. One pipe will be, in one pipe, a permanent measuring device will be installed, while in the other pipe, from the other pipe, water samples, etc., can be drawn. So this is, I think, quite an intelligent thing, and good, let me hurry up. What else can be stated? Well, my final slides would deal with groundwater protection, but my dear colleague from BGR has already taken up the point. Groundwater protection zones, also in the Gulf region, is maybe something pretty new. I personally haven't seen any legislation, but it's, whenever it comes to such vulnerable projects, it's absolutely necessary. So also in the area, in the countries I named, intensive groundwater protection zones will be implemented according to the 3 zoning steps my colleague